Welcome back, everybody. This is my series on relationships, and I have called it Start With You because you are the common denominator in all of your relationships. So if you like my videos, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Today I'm going to break down narcissism more, so we're going to go through that half of the spectrum. And I want to give some more complete definitions and just some good information to help give you perspective on, can I be this way? Can I operate this way? Do I know people who operate this way? Do I want to do this anymore? Or whatever. But just to give you some of that perspective, because we can't change it if we're not aware of it, right? So the reason that I just blatantly label that part of the spectrum across from codependence as narcissist is because codependents, when they look at the world, that filter by which they look at the world is other people, okay? So they're gonna step into an environment and size up who's there, and they're gonna make sure the other people in the environment are okay first. On the flip side of that, you've got the other people who go, no. They walk into an environment and what do? They put themselves first, okay? So that's like the big difference between the two, okay? And, I will say that normally it'd be like, one's not better than the other. No, one is better than the other. It's just that there's such misconceptions around narcissism and being kind of, not self-centered, but essentially like focusing on yourself first. And I want to break that part down because the problem is that like it gets out of hand, right? Like if we're talking about a psychopath who is sacrificing people on a regular basis, well, clearly that's not good, right? But there does need to be this, I can only take care of me, really. If my mask is not on and the plane's going down, I can't help anyone else, right? So that's why it is important to filter through the me first, but how you do it is even more important, okay? It took me a couple days to get back to speaking online because I caught a cold, not COVID, just a cold. Yes, people still get those. Anyway, so back to my flip-flop examples here. Codependence, filter through the environment. Who's in it? Are they okay? And the narcissist part, they look at their environment and they go, am I okay in relation to the environment? Me first, okay? Codependence also sacrifice the self quite drastically. It's because it's all about other people. So their identity goes, their time goes, their energy goes, their wants go, their needs go. It's all about sacrificing the self. Whereas if you get deep onto the narcissistic spectrum, like I was saying, like with psychopaths, it's all about sacrificing others. And we don't want to sacrifice others. We don't want to sacrifice ourselves either. So let's learn a little bit about that spectrum. Now, a lot of people, their eyes kind of bug out when I break down a narcissist because they're like, oh my God, you nailed it so good. Well, I know everyone thinks they're special and they think they're the exception to the rule, but human behavior follows patterns. Like, it's not complex. It's only when you think that you're the exception and that you're special somehow that you don't overcome the pattern because you've decided you don't fit into them. But the reality is everything boils down to patterns and roles, everything. So once you know what pattern you're stuck in and what role you're playing, you can then go, do I like it or not? So with narcissism, it's the me first mentality, okay? Someone who is mildly on the spectrum might be someone who can be a giver, they're very loving, they're very attentive, but their knee-jerk response, because of maybe some childhood trauma, will be to focus on the self first. And when they get threatened in a situation, they'll revert to being, to focusing on their self first. Whereas a codependent, just the opposite, all right? Now, again, I wanna just be very repetitive here. You can have certain behaviors and not be a blatant narcissist, but for the purpose of this video, I do wanna go over kind of how that spectrum gets deeper and deeper. So someone who runs narcissistic, for example, when they feel threatened, they're gonna want some sort of clarity or boundaries. So they might push people to their limits just to figure out, where do I stand with this person, right? And a lot of times they do that to almost reinforce childhood wounds or trauma. So for example, if they like someone and they feel threatened by that vulnerability, they might push that person away on purpose just so they can say, yep, see, I got abandoned again. They're not really manipulative, they're not really mean, and not really, doing anything sneaky to you, but they are in self-protection mode, and that's what their self-protection mode says, right? Like, I can't have things gray. I need it to be really clear. A codependent's gonna do just the opposite. I need things really gray. Let's just not talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, it's not happening, right? And they wiggle out of things. The narcissist is gonna go, yeah, I would rather be hated and at least know than be ambiguous and be vulnerable. See the difference? Whereas the codependent's gonna want the ambiguity, and they're gonna constantly be attending to the environment and people in it to make sure that they never have to deal with rejection or abandonment. Narcissists, not really as much. The narcissist will force the issue just to go, see, it happened to me again. And I don't want to like make fun of this, but it's so fascinating to me how everything boils down to patterns. And really all you have to do is step back and observe people, and you'll be like, oh, that person falls into this category. And we're not that complicated. On a side note, because I'm keeping this video kind of brief for the purpose of this particular set of videos I'm doing, if you want to learn more about narcissism, look up Dr. Ramani Durvasala. She's an Indian woman who practices psychology out of Los Angeles. She's phenomenal. She's really just dedicated her entire career to narcissism. She's fun to watch. So anyway, you can be someone who, isn't necessarily a psychopath and still have some defensive traits about, I got to take care of me first. And it can be as a result of fear, not as a result of love. And I think that's the biggest difference that I'm going to be coming to, is when you choose yourself out of fear, you operate more narcissistically. When you choose yourself out of love, it's a whole other ballgame. All right, because now we're dealing with boundaries, because both ends of these spectrums really don't do boundaries very well, okay? Narcissists trample on them, codependents let you walk all over them, which is why, again, like these two groups, they just attract each other all the time. And it's common to be like, okay, I got to learn what these people look like because I never want to deal with them again. Which is like saying, I never want to get the virus, right? Like, it's out there. So instead of maybe like always fearing the virus or always fearing the narcissist, instead you could focus on your immune system or self-love, because a virus can't penetrate a body that's in joy and is healthy and is functioning strongly. Like, it's not going to match up, right? Viruses are frequency based. Same goes for like narcissists. Narcissists can only get in if there's a way in. They can only take advantage of you if you're vulnerable. And I don't mean vulnerable in a good way. I mean, you are susceptible to seeking out validation through them. And that's essentially how codependents end up getting involved with narcissists, is because they are people pleasers, right? And so oftentimes they'll attract a narcissist who will never give them the validation they're looking for, and it becomes this really abusive cycle, which we'll get more into. It's never ending, and you never actually win with them because they are incapable of giving you validation. And so the best armor against a narcissist is just self-love. If you respect yourself, the three things that are most important I'm going to repeat over and over again are boundaries, self-respect, and self-love. And if you are practicing all three of those, a narcissist won't want anything to do with you because they're like a parasite and there'll be nowhere for them to latch on. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about the different types of narcissists once we get onto the deep end of the spectrum. Again, we're moving past the people that are kind of in the middle, that want to love and want to give love, but are just in fear, right? So they retract. Let's move beyond that person into the real heavy hitters on the spectrum. The first group is your overt narcissists, okay? Overt narcissists are the least dangerous of all of them. It's your classic narcissist, okay? We all know the story of how a narcissist fell in love with his own reflection, his own image, and just thought he was so great, right? That's one type of narcissist, okay? And again, narcissists filter reality through themselves. So no one affects, I affect no one. Everything affects me is the narcissistic model, right? So that's important to keep in mind as well. Like, how are you filtering through your reality? I'm gonna get more lights on. Overt narcissists, again, they're your classic narcissist. They depend heavily on their environment for attention. They love attention. They can be introverted or extroverted, but they're kind of just like big babies. You know, they love to be told how great they are, okay? But they're not really dangerous. Like if you offend them, they'll just crawl into their own little world and you know, maybe call you a few names, but that'll be it. Like, they're really not dangerous. And these people, they're hardworking. Like, you know, your overt narcissist, like I've yet to meet an overt narcissist that doesn't have an amazing resume. Like, they are dealing with their own inadequacies. All narcissists are, right? They overcompensate because they feel inadequate. And so they want attention for it, but it's never enough for them. Again, you could validate them all day long and tell them how great they are and in turn hope that they'll love you. Yeah, not gonna happen. So your overt narcissist is also the most obvious, right? They tend to drive nice cars and look really good. Like they take great care of themselves. The second group is the covert narcissist. Now, as far as personal experience and even with my clients, the individuals that most people get caught up with and just blindsided by are your covert narcissists, because covert narcissists, you don't see them coming, all right? Covert narcissists really are your classic in terms of like, there's an expression with narcissists where they love bomb. They really just try to win you over with how amazing they are. And then as soon as they've won you over, they pull a little bait and switch. Covert narcissists can be introverted or extroverted as well. And they'll give you attention initially, like, oh, wow, Paige, you're so great. You wrote a book. Oh, wow, Paige, you're so amazing. Like, I really love that you do this amazing yoga practice, blah, 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 blah. But they don't mean it, okay? And as soon as they have your attention, they do flip that script. Covert narcissists, their covert is hidden, sneaky, right? It's not obvious. They're so good at luring you in, and it's depending on you and the person and whatever. I mean, it could take months to really win you over. It could take days, who knows? But once they feel like they've kind of earned your attention, then they change. And covert narcissists are a lot like overt narcissists in the sense that publicly people think they're pretty great. They think they're really cool, they're really accomplished, they're really amazing. Fundamentally though, the one thread that runs real thick on a narcissistic spectrum, a real consistent common denominator, is their identification to victimization, okay? So you know you're dealing with a covert narcissist when they flip that script on you and now you're trying to win them over. Like all of a sudden it went from them winning you over to you winning them over. And they, you know, the world always does them wrong, or you're going to do them wrong. And in your mind, you're like, I like this person. Like, I want to show them I care. Let's close that gap. And no matter how hard you try, you just can't close the gap because they're always pointing out why it's never good enough. And so they leave their real victims, feeling stripped away, depending on how long you get involved with them, because they've literally tried everything and it hasn't been good enough. So covert narcissists, you know, like I said, they win you over and then they get to a point where they flip the script and now you're trying to win them over. I had one serious relationship with a covert narcissist, and I said to him when he was trying to be friends with me afterwards, and I said, you know, the one thing I realized about you wasn't that you couldn't love me completely. What I realized was that you won't let me love you, right? Because again, they have to play the role of victim. And if they're saying, thank you, what you did was so wonderful and I love you and appreciate you, that meant that they're no longer a victim. So that's always a threat to them. And they will always defend that victimization. No, it's not enough. No, you're not good enough. No, you did this. No, you did that. And boo-hoo, I'm a victim because of all of it, okay? They're really quite fatiguing to be around. So if you find yourself in a situation where it's like, it's just never enough, never good enough, you're dealing with a covert narcissist, plain and simple. And by the way, like a lot of times people, when they get involved with a narcissist, they have this like wishful thinking that somehow I can change them. Here's the thing, it's not about you. They are fundamentally inept. Dr. Ramani talks about a rubber band effect where narcissists can kind of stretch if you catch them where they're not vulnerable, but the second they feel stressed and threatened, they rubber band back. So there's really not a whole lot you can do. And it's important to recognize that if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, it's not about you changing them or what they need to learn from you. You're involved with this person because they're teaching you about where you're lacking boundaries, where you're lacking self-love, and where you're lacking self-respect. Because it will never, ever, ever, ever be good enough with a narcissist. So as soon as you realize that's the game they're playing, you get to decide, do I want to spend my life sacrificing me, becoming the codependent in the situation, or do I have enough self-respect to go, I'm done, and I'm out, all right? The next heavy hitter on the spectrum is your malignant narcissist. The only real difference between a covert narcissist and a malignant narcissist is that a malignant narcissist does everything a covert narcissist does, and they seek retaliation. They're very dangerous. So if, for example, if you are in a domestic abuse relationship, a malignant narcissist, like if you walk away, they might seek to actually take your life, okay? These relationships are very, very, very dangerous. And if you suspect that's the case, you need to contact authorities ASAP to make sure that you are walking away appropriately. A malignant narcissist loves punishment and retaliation. And that's the biggest difference between them and a covert narcissist is they're going to pull out all the stops and play the victim and get you to do all the work. But if you do something they don't like, then they'll retaliate and punish you, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, deeper on the spectrum, at the very end of the spectrum, we have our psychopaths and our sociopaths. And again, this is per Dr. Romani. There's only one difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. While all narcissists get worse and worse as far as empathy goes, and they lack the capacity to empathize, your sociopath and your psychopath, they lack a conscience, okay, to put it bluntly. They don't filter anything. A covert narcissist might be annoying and painful and mean, but, you know, they're not out like killing dogs, right? Like they just think they're a victim. They're going to try to protect themselves at all cost. Your malignant narcissist moves into that psychopathic and sociopathic spectrum, but they still kind of understand that certain behaviors are just wrong. Your psychopath and your sociopath, they lack that awareness. And again, there's only one difference. The difference being one is born, one is made. Sociopaths are formed through their environment. They've experienced so much trauma that they have, I guess, molded into that sociopathic behavior where they lack that filter to be like, God, this is just wrong. A psychopath is born without that filter, okay? That's really the only difference. I think it's like less than 5% of the population, if that, really run deep on that spectrum. But that would be like the end game, okay? These people, they lack conscience. Obviously, they have no empathy. You know, if you want to study sociopathy, then just look up serial killers. They'll give you a lot of good information on how they became that way. And yeah, psychopaths are born. So people like Bernie Madoff, those who just don't care about the well-being of others at all, and sacrifice, again, going back to that word sacrifice, deeply narcissistic people sacrifice others, codependents sacrifice themselves. So you've got to keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out, like, where do I fall? Am I always the one sacrificing for others, or do I make everyone sacrifice for me? That'll give you a really good idea. I haven't personally dealt with a psychopath or a sociopath. I don't even know that I've dealt with a malignant narcissist. I think the bulk of those on that spectrum are overt and covert. You know, your bodybuilders who flex their muscles, and then your covert narcissists who just, they wheel you in and they just want to play victim all the time. Both overt and covert narcissists, though, I should stress this, are really bad about closing the gap. Neither one want to feel like they're not a victim, okay? It's just how they show it. You know, coverts are very sneaky about it, and they kind of trap you, whereas the overt narcissist is just a big baby. They always want, it's never enough. They just want more and more attention. So that's essentially the long and the short of it. And again, it's really important to recognize, like, give yourself some frame of reference. If you want more information, again, I highly recommend Dr. Ramani Durvasala. She's really great about breaking down the different types of narcissism and helping you understand kind of how the involvement happens. In a nutshell, though, you know, we only attract people who disrespect us when we have decided that we're not worth respecting. So keep that in mind as well, as the whole point of this program is to give you an opportunity to maybe make changes in the role that you're playing and how you operate in respect to others so you can attract differently. The goal is not to change other people. The goal is to shift yourself enough to have better relationships, because we can't change others. And the thing that I always tell my clients who are like, no, I can get it from them, is if you were, say, asking someone for $1 million, you're like, I need $1 million from this person. I know they have it. I just got to show them that I'm worthy of it, right? When the reality is they've only got like $1,000 to their name. It's not a matter of them being able to, in terms of like you being worthy. It's a matter of them being able to in terms of their capacity to give it. Narcissists just can't give you the validation you're looking for, nor is it their job. It's your job to validate yourself. So that pretty much sums up this video. Again, like, share, subscribe if you want to learn more about relationships and the roles that we play in terms of different relationships. And next time I'll be talking about how codependents operate and the different types of codependency that exist, and you know, if you fall on that spectrum. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.